Good afternoon. Today's talk will be the first part of a two-part talk on Thomas Hardy's novel Under the Greenwood Tree. Under the Greenwood Tree was Thomas Hardy's second published novel. It was published in 1872 by Tinsley Brothers in two volumes. Like Desperate Remedies, it was published anonymously, that is, it did not have Thomas Hardy's name as the author. But this time, Tinsley recognized the value of the novel and is said to have offered Hardy £30 for the copyright. And he later claimed that it was an outrageously low offer, but Hardy accepted it. In 1873, this novel was published in the United States by Holt and Williams with Hardy's name. The novel, which one critic described as an idyll in prose, differs significantly from the murky and dark atmosphere of Desperate Remedies, the other work of Hardy. The title is derived from William Shakespeare's poem Under the Greenwood Tree in his pastoral comedy As You Like It, and it anticipates a pastoral depiction of rural life in the Victorian era. It was in this novel that Hardy resumed the long English pastoral tradition inherited from Shakespeare and Fielding and revealed his mastery at creating rural scenes, both in terms of descriptions of the rural setting as well as in terms of depicting the way of life of people who are housed in rural landscapes. As Valerie Barnish, a critic, points out, the novel setting is the most vital aspect of the book, and the whole work might almost be described as a lyric poem on Dorsetshire country life. Hardy constructed the novel, which he set in Mellstock, a fictional town modelled on Hardy's native Higher Bockhampton and Stinsford, upon two parallel plots: the story of the Mellstock Church Choir, whose members consist of such colourful characters as the tranter, the shoemaker, and the simpleton, and the other parallel plot revolves around a romantic love story between young Dick Dewey, an honest yeoman and a member of the Mellstock Church Choir, and the pretty and flirtatious Fancy Day, a village schoolmistress and daughter of Geoffrey Day, a gamekeeper. Following what is almost a rule in Hardy's fiction, Fancy has two other suitors, one of which is Frederick Shiner, a rich farmer who is also a church warden, and the other is a local young vicar called Maybold. Eventually, Fancy rejects the offers of marriage from the vicar and marries Dick, although her father disapproves. The wedding party is held under a greenwood tree. The romance between Dick and Fancy is interwoven with the concerns of the choir and the fortunes and misfortunes of a group of villagers. The novel, which resembled a pastoral idyll, immediately attracted attention of the reading public and reviewers. Later critics also recognized the value of Hardy's early novel. Norman Page, a celebrated critic of Hardy, noted that, and I quote, "This is a complete success and already contains themes and situations that were to recur in his later fiction. For example, the fickle heroine who has to choose between suitors of various social status." Unquote. Michael Milgate, another critic of Hardy, described it as nearly flawless. Hardy cherished love for music and old rustic musical instruments all his life, and as yet another critic puts it, and I quote, "Under the Greenwood Tree reveals another important thing for the first time: Hardy's extreme responsiveness to music, only hinted at previously in An Indiscretion and Desperate Remedies." Unquote. References to folk songs and tunes appear not only in Under the Greenwood Tree but in many of Hardy's other writings as well. Hardy's father, for example, was a keen and passionate violinist who passed a love of music to young Thomas Hardy. Both his father and paternal grandfather were important members of the Stinsford Parish Church Choir. Now, when we go to the next aspect of this work, which requires our attention, it is with regard to the opening of the novel. Novels of Hardy are usually known for their special openings, which give us a window into the entire novel. The opening of this novel reveals one of his most masterly descriptions of nature, rural settings, and society. And I quote the opening: "To dwellers in a wood, almost every species of tree has its voice as well as its feature. At the passing of the breeze, the fir trees sob and moan no less distinctly than the rock. The holly whistles as it battles with itself. The ash hisses amid its quiverings. The beech rustles while its flat bough rise and fall, and winter, which modifies the note of such trees as shed their leaves, does not destroy its individuality." Unquote. The novel, interestingly, contains a few significant autobiographical elements as well. Fancy Day resembles Hardy's cousin, Tryphena Sparks, who became headmistress of a Plymouth school in 1871. However, their romance is less interesting than the vivid descriptions of the Dewey family and the Millstone choir. Primarily, Under the Greenwood Tree revives the rural environment of Hardy's childhood, and in Millstone, the Tranter's cottage resembles quite clearly Hardy's family home. And there's an elaborate and eloquent description of it, which I quote: "It was a long, low cottage with a hipped roof of thatch, having dormer windows, breaking up into the eaves, a chimney, standing in the middle of the ridge, and another at each end. The window shutters were not yet closed, and the fire and candlelight within radiated forth upon the thick bushes of box and laurestinus growing in clumps outside, and upon the bare boughs of several codling trees hanging about in various distorted shapes, the result of early training as espaliers combined with careless climbing into their boughs in later years. The walls of the dwelling were, for the most part, covered with creepers, though these were rather beaten back from the doorway, a feature which was worn and scratched by much passing in and out, giving it by day the appearance of an old keyhole. Light streamed through the cracks and joints of outbuildings a little way from the cottage, a sight which nourished a fancy that the purpose of the erection must be rather to veil bright attractions than to shelter unsightly unnecessaries. The noise of a beetle and wedges and the splintering of wood was periodically heard from this direction, and at some little distance further, a steady regular munching and the occasional skir of a rope betokened a stable and horses feeding within it." Unquote. Under the Greenwood Tree also contains excellent descriptions of a band. Now, when we speak of excellent descriptions of a band, what we essentially mean is Hardy's truthfulness to what actually village musicians played during his time, and also Hardy's truthfulness with regard to the contents of the Christmas carols in the parish church of Hardy's time. We have another eloquent description of this in the novel, and I quote: "Old William Dewey, with the Voicello played the bass, his grandson Dick the treble violin, and Reuben and Michael Mayle the tenor and second violins respectively. The singers consisted of 4 men and 7 boys, upon whom devolved the task of carrying and attending to the lanterns and holding the books open for the players. Unquote. Although this novel, Under the Greenwood Tree, is often classified as a part of Hardy's minor novels, it anticipates the fabric of his major novels later, and thanks to its freshness and charm, is certainly his early masterpiece. The motif of village musicians, which will reappear significantly at significant frequency in Hardy's later novels, reflects his childhood memories of rural music and dance. Although rustic life is shown in terms of a sense of musical continuity and harmony, the novel combines elements of romance with a realistic account of the slow and painful displacement of old traditions with modern conventions that approximated the onset of the Industrial Revolution in Victorian England. This confrontation between the old and the new order is rendered metaphorically by the vicar's attempt to replace the Mellstock choir with a new mechanical church organ. Under the Greenwood Tree's emphasis upon the modernization and decline of traditional English country life anticipates Hardy's later novels, particularly The Mayor of Casterbridge. So this is the introduction that I had to give you with regard to the scope of Hardy's novel Under the Greenwood Tree. In my next talk, we'll be dealing critically on the plot of the novel and Hardy's art of characterization as evident in Under the Greenwood Tree. Thank you.